Welcome to our fifth book party of 2022. I established these as a way to help promote the books that our Verse Virtual community members have had published. I originally did it last year because so many of us had books published in 2020. No book launches anywhere, of course. So that's where it started, but I've since expanded it because we have books that we've published over the last few years, and there's never a bad reason to promote a book, in my opinion. So the format that I chose for these was a little bit like speed dating, to set a time limit so we didn't go on and on and on, because I do that. So 5 minutes to introduce yourself, read a poem, or introduce yourself, introduce the book, read one poem from the book, and then your 5 minutes are up. The idea is so that we can get everybody a chance to present and hopefully tantalize those who are in attendance to buy the book. That's what it's all about. So I've got to set my timer, and then we will begin. Oh, that's not going to work. Timer, 5 minutes. How about 4 minutes and 50 seconds? Okay. I believe that Cynthia is up first. Yes, Cynthia, it's you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. I'll post the info about my book in the chat.
Thank you.
There's some, this is my book. It's called Full Circle.
Yes.
It's a book of haiku and senryu poems, just published by Cholla Needles Press and Joshua Tree, and it's on Amazon. The link's in the chat. This book is special to me because it's my first book of haiku and senryu poems. The photo on the cover is by my husband, Bill Dahl, too, so that's a special memory. So because I only get to read one poem, and because it's going to be a haiku, it's going to be very short. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how I came to be interested in haiku and how that's played out in my life the past couple of years. I actually first became interested in haiku about 7 years ago, and you know, I didn't know any haiku poets, but something was pulling me in that direction, and I just was willing to go in there. And I you know, bought some books by the masters, and I started looking around online at what people were doing and saying about haiku. So, you know, I got a little flummoxed by the whole thing, to be honest, because I learned, you know, that haiku is just kind of rife with people who will tell you how to do it, and lots of rules, spoken and unspoken, and extreme opinions. I've heard the term haiku police used. Anyway, what happened was I just kind of threw up my hands and stopped. You know, I just couldn't find a way in to have it make sense for me. So fast forward to 2019, and I met a poet named Peter Jastrzemski. Jim has published some of his poems in Verse Virtual, so you can find work by him on the Verse Virtual website. Peter's a fine poet, and especially a master of short forms. So, you know, he became my mentor and helped me find a way in to the world of haiku that worked for me. So this occurred right before the pandemic happened. And then, you know, as the past couple of years played out, I found that haiku really helped get me through it. So that was great. You know, I really liked the challenge, and I learned a lot, and so on and so forth. So there are 116 poems in this book. They're one on a page. I really like how the publisher did this format, gives some space to each little poem. And, I said haiku and senru, the distinction is, haiku is usually a nature-based poem, and senru is more human foibles, human experience, that kind of thing. So, of course, there's a gray area in the middle where, no one can say exactly which one it is, but that's the basic idea. So having said all that, the other good thing about haiku right now is all those rules I referred to are being blown apart at this moment. Haiku is really becoming a multicultural global thing instead of a Japanese thing about cherry blossoms, so it's very much in the expanding mode right now. And there's a lot of experimentation going on. It's kind of pretty exciting, actually, and interesting. So here's my little poem. The poem I'm going to read is, a nature-based haiku, but with a twist, with a modern twist. So it's one of my favorites. It goes, kissing the sky, a purple haze of jacarandas.
All right.
That's it. Thank you.
I love jacarandas. Absolutely
Me
do.
too.
So the purple haze makes total sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you put your info in the chat, and that's good. I will, when I post this on YouTube, I will have each author listed by name and a link to where people can find their books as well. So those who didn't make it today will still have a chance to participate. Our second presenter is Neil Creighton. Good day, mate. You'll have to unmute.
Yeah, I'm doing it now. Done it.
There you go.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I don't say good day so much, but everyone says good day, but Australians say good day. Just this very soft G. Anyway, here we go with my book, Mortesa. I'm starting my timing. Photo by Jim on the cover. Beautiful, beautiful photo by Jim. And Mortesa it's poetry, but it's also a story. So I'll tell you a little bit about the story idea of it. It's got two places, two settings. One, I guess, would be a little bit like Iraq, not Iraq, but a little like a war-torn place, a place, with a lot of problems, with a lot of bombings in the marketplace, and a lot of people have lost limbs, soldiers stepping on mines, and just ordinary people going shopping. And the other place is a Western world, a little bit like your country and mine, that's had a change of government and has had a turn to the dark side, I think. So perhaps that sounds a little bit familiar to you. So they're the two places. There's three characters in the book. The main one, I suppose, is Mortesa. The book's named after Mortesa. 30 years before the events of the book, was a refugee, and he became an orthopedic surgeon. And when the book takes place, he's gone back to the country he had to escape from, and he fits prosthetic limbs, fancy prosthetic limbs. While he's there, he meets a young woman called Atifa, who's lost both her legs. A poor woman, but he decides he's going to help her for various reasons that the book will explore. The second part of the book, that's the third person. The other three parts are all first-person responses. Part two, Mortesa goes back to his new country, and he's kind of a little bit devastated by it. And that sort of reflects his trauma, the insight that he's had, the horror he feels, and he uses a symbol of fog for that. The third part is his wife's voice, also a surgeon, Rosa, a far more optimistic and encouraging voice, encouraging Mortesa to stop worrying so much about these things and just do stuff. And the last voice is Atifa herself. Part four goes back to the events in part one, where Mortesa interviews Atifa. And it's really the things that convince him to go and fundraise for her and provide the prosthetics I seem to have lost I've got a funny little image on my thing there. But anyway, and the 5 or 6 poems that Ada forgets are the things that she told Mortesa that encouraged him to provide this great service for her. I think she's a really wonderful character, but there you go. I made her up. Self-praise. I'm going to read you the last poem in the book, and these are Artifa's words. And you know, one of the things, it's a revelation of her, but it also gives you some insight into why, just a small insight. It's like you'd have to read all the poems to get the total picture, all of Artifa's poems. But this one is the last poem that she gets. There is an epilogue as well, but this is in a lot of ways the end of the book. So here it is. This one's called River. And you have to use a lot of imagination, and imagine the person who's reading it is an 18-year-old woman. Oh, well, there you go. I'm sure you can manage. Here we go. River. This ancient river we gaze on, older than civilization, older than empire and kings and wars, flows past banks where long ago great walled cities flourished. Proud kings strutted and boasted of their wealth and their power. High walls glazed with blue, wide enough for chariots, gave the illusion of safety. Young men, armed with sword, spear, and bow, marched out to conquer distant lands. They brought back gold, jewels, and slaves. City squares filled with the clamour of commerce, palaces with the malice of plotting, evenings with lovers' whispers and pledges. Where are they now? They're dust. Time has buried them and all their machinations. Let kings boast. Let power rise and fall. In this brief moment of my life, I seek things that last. What is there but doing good, loving mercy, and believing that love can triumph and reign in this small heart of mine?
You timed that perfectly, Neil.
Oh, good.
We are ready to hear from Cristina.
That was beautiful, Neil. Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you, James, so much for having us all here this evening. It's truly a pleasure and an honor to join everyone here and to hear poems from their latest books. I'll be reading a poem from my latest collection called The Sound of a Collective Pulse, which was published by Kelsey Books just this past October. And I'll put a link. Let's see. Bear with me one moment. Did it work? Oh, I'm not sure. I'll put that in the chat later. If
Okay.
it didn't work this time, sorry. So I wrote, and most people know me here, but I'm originally from the East Coast. I currently live in Wisconsin, Southeast Wisconsin, and very happy to be a part of the Verse Virtual group, and lovely to be here for this reading as well. Most of the poems in The Sound of a Collective Pulse I wrote during 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic, when we were all looking for ways to express ourselves and find meaning and purpose. Definitely writing poetry is something that saw me through the pandemic, as well as knitting. I think I knitted a scarf for every member of my family, whether they wanted a scarf or not, they got a scarf from me. It was very meditative, taking walks by the lake. And while knitting, while taking walks in nature, a lot of my poems would form in my head. One of my favorite practices, once a month, visual verse. I think a lot of people on here have been published on, in the visual verse journal. I found that a lot of my poems, no matter what the image or piece of artwork that they presented, it was often about what we were all going through during the pandemic. Sometimes what I would write about would be something that would be a form of distraction. And I originally thought I was going to read a poem from visual verse, but instead actually the Ekphrastic Review is another favorite journal of mine. So I chose a poem that was originally published in the Ekphrastic Review, and then I chose it to be a part of this collection. So some of my distraction techniques would be to write about love. So this is a love poem. To celebrate the bountiful, inspired by the painting by Kobar of Mithila by Padma Sri Sita Devi. To celebrate the bountiful. My love for you is 1,000 suns, with adoring eyes all circling in rotation. My love for you is the fish that swims upstream with only the promise of reaching you. I paint our world bright yellows and brave orange hues, fingertips pigmenting the walls with color. I pluck a golden globe from the sky like a dandelion in the field, just to light the lamp of life with tender offerings. Joined by a bounty of threaded beads, we are surrounded by luscious berries falling off the vine, a feathered crown bird, a necklace adorned turtle, and the young elephant draped in fine silks. The circle of us jumps from splashes of ochre to deep pools of tawny red. We rise to the surface, resplendent with feathers and blossoms. My love for you is a celestial celebration, a festival of the marriage of all things. Short and sweet.
It was sweet. I like that. Next up, we should be at Marjorie.
Okay.
And you should be able to screen share if you choose.
Okay. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, poets. Hard acts to follow. Those were all wonderful, wonderful poems. My new book is, I don't see myself up on the screen. Do you see me? Okay.
I have you set to speaker view, so you're the one who's showing in the recording.
Okay. I just see you, Jim. So here
How
is
lucky.
that I know. I think so too. So here's my new book, Begin with a Question, which came out March 22nd. And it is a book that, not surprisingly, embraces questions, some of the really tough questions, of course, of why is there suffering in the world? And yet it is not a book without hope. It was accepted in the fall of 2019, and then it was delayed and delayed and delayed because of the pandemic. The one good thing about that is that I was able to then add a lot of poems about the early stages of the pandemic. And I think it made it a better book to weave those kind of through. So it has poems about my mother in an assisted living facility in Arizona. I'm in Pennsylvania, which was one of the hardest parts for me about the pandemic. It has reinterpretations of a lot of different biblical texts. It addresses different issues and historical events throughout history. But since we're approaching Easter, I thought I would read this poem that popped up on my memories this morning and Facebook, and I think it addresses several of those issues. So I'll go ahead and share my screen for that. This is my magnolia tree from 2 years ago when this poem first came out in Stone Canoe. So this is called Cracked, as you can see. And I did an interview the other day, and I thought Mark Burroughs, who was interviewing me, made an interesting observation that often we leave off that third line of the Leonard Cohen poem when we're remembering it, when we're citing it, ring the bells that still can ring. And I thought that was very perceptive and insightful, that we talk about the crack, we talk about the light getting in, but then that idea of the action that we still need to take sometimes to survive, right? Cracked. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Ring the bells that still can ring. Glockenspiel, Caroline, sleigh, service, bicycle, dinner, railroad, for whom the bell tolls. Even the nostalgic past door buzzers of Avon, the sweet, small kissing chimes of weddings, the once sacred bells of St. Mary's swing high and wide, your clang and bong up and over, the death knell that keeps snaking through silver and steel, brass and plastic, the daily and divine, it tolls for thee. Ring as ritual until the darkening skies split into echo, into action, until your earthly arms ache with sound that knows no island, thundering boom of the bells. I thought that also was kind of appropriate for verse virtual, where we have this sense of community that Jim and others have created. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. I like that. Next on our list is Rosemary, and she hasn't joined us, so we will go to Charles. Hello, Charles. Are you going to be able to do?
Hi, I'm here. Yeah,
You got the video. Great.
yeah. I had the technical difficulties at 4:59. It took me 10 minutes to connect, but here I am. So thanks for
Welcome.
your patience. Thank you, and thanks for doing this. And hi to, see, I know one of you in person. Sterling was the drummer in our high school band. And he's the common link. It's Union and Poets and Verse Virtual and the Santa Clara Valley and all that fun stuff. And Jim Lewis was the spark that made me say, I will accept the invitation to get my book published. This is what it looks like, called Designs. And that's a drawing by my sister, pen and ink, that she did. And people have said nicer things about the cover than anything else. So I'll relate that to my sister. And then I'm going to do a screen share here. And you can see the title, Designs, Blueprints of Floor Plans of a Provisional Residence, with a drawing by my sister. This is me. This is the incorrect data on the back. This is my little blurb in which I talk about the states that I lived in, and also states of anxiety, doubt, stress, confusion, uncertainty, panic, transition, elation, tension, unrest, disorder, fright, crisis, denial, rage, grief, mourning, emergency, shock, disbelief, grace, tranquility, deep sleep, sin, and especially state of mind or state of the art. And then I have the table of contents here, and you can see it's the floor plans because it's like an imaginary house. So it's 6 sections of 12 poems. Each one is the bedroom, which is kind of the relationship poems. The second is the kitchen dining room, which is the, I don't know what, eating poems. Third is the music parlor ants, which is musically inspired things. Jim knows about those. 4 is the rumpus room, which is the gamesome or ludic things that I did over the years. 5 is the lending library with kind of more literary inspirations. And 6 is the living room, which must be about existential things. So each section has is my screen sharing correctly?
No, we're still seeing the cover of the book.
Oh, okay, let me go. Okay, let me go back here. How do I switch from this one to the other one? Stop this share and go to this share. Nope, that's not it. Oh my, sorry. Now what do we
Technology
see?
is what it is.
Huh?
Technology is what it is.
Is this sharing? Because I'm not getting any Zoom. I'm wasting all my time too.
I put you on pause.
Okay. Okay, now are we seeing bedroom suite?
Yes.
Okay, so this is each one has an internal title page. So bedroom suite is the chamber of slumbers. The kitchen dining room has the epigraph, "Come dear, the skillet is hot and willing, and will you wait to put in tins of spite until the lick is down." 3 is the music parlor ants, musings and lore, with the Verlaine quote, de la musique avant toute chose, et pour cela préfère l'impair. And the fourth one is the rumpus room. Above, how do you keep a poet busy all day? See below. Below, how do you keep a poet busy all day? See above. 5 is the lending library, quoting, and this is an actual real quote from somebody. I like to talk about books. And the last one is a simple living room around the world in 80 ways, around the world in weighty ways. Okay, and do I have a minute to read one poem?
You have 1 minute.
Okay, this is it. This is the very last poem, which is Coming by Forbidden Names. The price we have to pay today to buy or take a map on sale or ride an even larger passage to journey bon voyage beyond this stop, acceptable and mindful midway station, an edifice of feeling right or up or wrong or down or in or out or just above the cut of finely wedged in ancient stones or well beneath a plethora of arches, left echoing in clearly lawful shouts, is lessonless in terms of engineering, of building merchandise removing shelves, and yes, in auctioneering art, deflecting bids to rid us all of inconvenient selves of chance. We might be built, we might believe, in proscript time, in further licitation, be it here or anywhere, before they call for bidding us farewell. Merci.
Mais de rien. Thank you. Ruth, we are ready to hear from you.
There we are. I'm unmuted. Yes.
You're all good.
Okay, this is my latest book. It should not have this across because it's so new that I don't have my author's copies yet. This was the proof copy. The view out here, this picture is the view from my front window. I have always lived in Southern California, sometimes near the beach, sometimes inland, but I've ended up back here in San Clemente and pretty close to the beach. It's this book coming out from Future Cycle. Diane Kistner is a great editor. It's only just now available. It came out Tuesday. So I'll put the link in there. It's my 5th book and it's my 3rd with Future Cycle. It's called What's Left Over. And it took me a long time to get this one going. I started writing it, not even thinking of writing a book, but just my husband was on, oh God, aphasia is beginning to creep up on me. Hospice in the house here for 6 months before he died. It was a difficult time. And one of the ways I dealt with it was by writing about it every day. And then I continued writing it afterwards to deal with being a widow. It's probably my most personal book I ever wrote. It was hard for me to get it together. He was a caring gentleman. He was a doctor. And I think I would have liked to have been one of these patients. He was very quiet and caring, but he was super smart. He had this wonderful sense of humor. A lot of fun left my life when he did. And I really miss that. But some of that comes out in the book more, and the book is not entirely all mourning, but it is talking about mostly about this difficult time. And I had a lot of pictures from my window. If you, those of you who are my Facebook friends, you know I'm always posting them. I'm just standing right outside my patio slider when I take those pictures. And somehow it was really important to me that I didn't have just any sunset on my front of my book. I had to be one that I had taken. And Diane went to a great deal of work to get my low resolution picture into a shape where it would actually work here. I'm going to read the first poem in the book. It's called Enough. Oh, I have to change my glasses. Enough. Too many streets in this city, with their spines drawn white, their paving black as loss. As many as the branches of winter bare sycamores leading away from home. As many as the veins that trace their course through our bodies. Central Avenue, broad and straight, leads directly to the beating heart of downtown. Sunset Drive takes you to the aging painted ladies and their scrolls of gingerbread trim. There's the Avenue of Cancer, the Boulevard of Diabetes, the irregular lane following fibrillation of the heart, the wandering way of dementia with its bridge broken over the river of self.
Wow, thank you. I
Well,
have a
thank you,
question for you,
everybody.
Ruth. I have a question for you.
What?
Did you ever live in San Francisco
Just briefly,
in the late 50s?
yes.
Okay, so I am not mistaken. And here's what I would like to do. I'm going to, let me switch this view just
But
because,
they're in 57, 58.
okay. I love that you can't do the background and the photo of the book at the same time. So this is my third book called Leave a Light On. And I don't remember the setting, Ruth. It may have just been a conversation on Facebook, but you mistyped. I lived in San Francisco in the late 50s. And you typed instead, I loved in San Francisco in the late 50s. And I took that, and there's a poem in my book about that, and it goes like this. I loved in San Francisco in the late 50s. Never mind who or why or how long or even how many, I lost count. Edna would understand that, understand the lone trees that in winter bare their souls for careless birds. Frost was there too, close, warm. He loved cats, or so he said, then gave the fog their feet to tiptoe in on. Quiet, a luxury in that busy place, defined not as the absence of noise, but of all human noise. The beach, the waves, the sunsets from Alcatraz, burning that famous bridge, like God burned a bush to make Moses stop and listen. Just listen. The bush, the bridge, neither was consumed. I loved in San Francisco, deeply, desperately, but far too soon for the famous summer, the rebellion against the old guard. Too early to pretend I was the one who started it all. On gray mornings, when I felt no affection, no connection to anyone around me, I would stand alone on the Presidio cliffs, watching the morning mists obscure the towers of the Golden Gate, hide the passing of love. So thank you for the inspiration.
Well, I didn't love well enough because I got divorced from that guy.
The nice thing about poetry is that you can tell fiction as though it were real, and who's to know, unless you fess up. So there we are.
And vice versa, you can tell the real things as if it were fiction. Or
That's
fiction
true.
as it were the real things.
And people, yeah, who's to know? I often have people ask me, was that a real thing? And I go, no, that's made up. It was just a prompt that kicked off my imagination, and there we go.
And a lot of
So-
times it's a little of everything. So, I mean,
Yeah.
what difference does it make?
What difference at all? Tell the truth and embellish it.
Dreams are real.
We all do. One of the lines from a Stephen Bishop song says, memories make us what we never were. And I've always loved that line because it is so true. The way we remember a specific incident is unlike what anyone else remembers of the same thing. So now that we've basically finished with presenting our books, I'm going to stop the recording and we can visit for a few.